Hey guys, so just a quick heads up before we start this week's MADcast. This episode is going to be, in my opinion, pretty controversial. A lot of you are going to have a lot to say about this episode. Just be forewarned, there's a lot of harsh language. Know that we're using it just to have a discussion and not because we want to offend anybody. And most of the episode is going to be talking about political correctness and politics in general and how we treat each other. So there's not going to be a lot of funny stories on this one. It's just going to be a lot of talking. I hope you guys are interested. I feel like we have a lot to say and some of it's pretty worth listening to. So give us a chance and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Hey now!
Hey everybody and welcome to MADcast, episode 5. The 5.
Mm-hmm.
What's the 5th?
The fifth.
Right.
I plead the 5th. We're back again, coming at you with another hard-hitting episode. Myself and of course my co-host over here, Dave.
What's going on?
And as always, our faithful third chair, the man with the plan, every single episode, Nikolai. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Matt.
I'm glad to hear it.
Doing
I'm
pretty
glad to
well.
hear it. You look like you've shook the sleep from your eyes.
You might get. I don't know what you're going to get out of me this week, or month, or episode, I should say, rather. I am recently awoken, so there's going to be some vigor. That or you're just going to get some apathy. Really?
Oh, wow. Great start.
That was pretty good. Are we still recording?
Anyway, yeah. Oh, about that one time I took a nap.
That's the topic for today, naps.
Yeah, naps.
Oh, man.
I had a doozy
The
one.
stories I could tell if
Oh.
that was the topic. I do love taking naps.
They're refreshing.
No, but as you know, the show is us three sitting around and discussing a particular topic. We've done bullying, pain, rage, embarrassment. And now for our 5th topic, we're going to swing it over to our idea man, third chair, Nikolai.
What was that?
What's going on, sir?
No, I mean, I'm almost 110% certain you guys are going to be bringing a topic.
Oh, no.
Yeah, what? I mean, that's not how this is supposed to work. It's MADcast. Why would I continually
I brought
always
embarrassment.
No, you didn't.
I brought rage.
I'm bringing rage right now. And the fact that I got to keep bringing goddamn topics every week. All right, so I'm flipping through the comments of this most recent episode of RLF. What number is this one? RLF 221. There's a comment that's kind of got me, I don't know, got me thinking a little bit.
Okay.
So in the episode, I almost said the R word, which I'm going to say now because I'm not going to fucking say the R word because it's stupid. I almost said retarded. And it's a word I try to say less because I know it's not a PC word.
It's true.
We got a comment from episode 221 of RLF from SWA Master Jesus. Oh, Jesus Christ. Don't censor yourselves. You're on an internet show, not a radio broadcast. Now, let's see. Al responds, what did we censor? Brandon Goodman responds, Al Chestbreach, Nikolai stopped himself from saying retard. Al said, oh, gotcha. And then somebody else responded, retardation is a serious issue. It is not a joke or something that may be made fun of because I know people that suffer and it isn't their fault. Nor do they want to live. Okay.
Wait, last commenter.
Nor do they want to live. It's the same guy who
Okay.
did the bath salts thing.
Oh, really?
He's been trolling our comments. So.
Okay.
Retardation is a serious issue.
If he actually is trolling, that's kind of funny, actually.
He's been doing it the past couple of It's a serious issue, and it's not a joke. It's something made fun of, because I know people that suffer, and it isn't their fault, nor do they want to live like that, and they didn't choose to be like that.
He's got a point.
He's got a great point.
Wow. So concise.
There was another fucking comment, though, that I really, really want to find.
What's the gist of it? What's...
The gist of it, we're going to sit here in silence till I fucking find it.
All right.
It's driving me crazy.
Dead air is usually probably pretty good.
Giving the fans a nice vape.
All right, I read one of the comments talking about that. I had no idea.
Hashtag vape nash. Oh, and you had no idea that they could hear it?
No.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not a big deal.
I mean, I wouldn't mind, probably. But I'm weird. I never mind when, like, people eat on the radio. I know some people really get bothered by that. Like when you listen to, like, Howard Stern or something.
Well, we're not on the fucking radio.
That's
they
true.
just said we're on the internet.
New Frontier Media.
That's right.
Pioneers, really.
We can't even, be technically controlled. Although
Exactly.
we totally can.
Oh, well, sure. Easily.
Oh, yeah.
We give in.
It would take one person saying, like, hey, stop it.
Gentle suggestions are enough to totally deter us.
Alright. So I can't find it. I guess somebody must have taken it down.
Okay.
Wow.
Let's reel that down.
There was another one. Okay, so there was a comment, and the reason why I keep bringing it, because they were just saying, like, you guys shouldn't censor yourselves. The gist of it was that we shouldn't censor ourselves. We shouldn't stop ourselves from saying anything. And that just for the sake of not trying to offend someone, because it's an internet show, you can say whatever you want. And
It's true.
I agree with that, but I disagree with the fact that you can just say whatever you want.
Also true.
Yeah,
Alright.
I agree with that.
So what I think, PC, political correctness, on our personal experiences with it, how we feel about it, because it's something that it's like bullying in our first episode. It's like you said, it's a pop issue. It's something that's very popular to talk about right now, and a lot of people feel very strongly about it.
You could argue even the last president was elected in large part due to a backlash to PC culture.
That our current
At least
president,
in part. Yeah, our current president.
Our current president, yeah.
Right.
Definitely. I mean, there's so many videos where it's people talking about how they're just so sick and tired of, this PC culture, and that's what's ruining the country, and that if you were allowed to speak more plainly, or, the way people spoke, when America was great, then we wouldn't have any of the issues that we do have.
Right.
And that the fact that we sugarcoat our words and speak with PC language, that's the issue with everything now, which I kind of have a hard time with.
I disagree with that sentiment. I don't think that's true. But I also find the idea of political correctness sort of inherently distasteful, and it just feels off to me.
Because the idea of having the government tell you what is...
Not the government, because this isn't government. This is pure culture, right?
Yeah.
So, it's not like anyone's suggesting, besides some real radicals, that we adopt, like, British hate speech laws or even Canadian hate speech laws, which really prohibit speech. I don't think it rises to that level that anyone's calling for that. But that self-censorship of, the language you use is certainly... sort of on trial in the public, sphere. And as far as, self-censoring yourself from saying the word retard in the context of a joke, and if the argument is you can't do that because it's a serious topic, I know that commenter was trolling, but say that's the argument, which is not far off. It's a serious topic, it's sensitive, people struggle with it, it's something that could offend someone. I think that misunderstands the purpose of comedy. I think comedy is in its finest when it is dealing with very serious, sensitive subjects, stuff that you wouldn't be able to talk about in a way like that in any other way besides comically.
I personally believe that is the purpose of comedy.
Yes, absolutely.
Is to take the moments in life that are unbearable.
Yeah.
And find the humanity.
Yeah.
And to find the humanity in the moment itself, you know, in things that, no matter what it is, death, cancer, breakups.
Right.
To find the stuff that we can all see, that we all experience and can relate to. I guess find some humor in. But, I don't know. It's because you have to walk that line where... Because there is humor to be found when you offend.
Yeah, there certainly is.
Absolutely. I think that's where most humor comes from, is from someone getting offended, but then realizing that while being offended, the offense is not meant in a malicious way.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's not coming from a place of hatred, it's coming from a place of
Compassion.
humor, compassion, almost empathy.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Empathy. Yeah, definitely commiserating on the same shared experience.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, isn't like a famous Mel Brooks quote? It's funny when the board bends. It's not funny when the board breaks.
I never heard that. That's good.
Yeah, because it's meaning like it's funny that there's stress being applied, but as long as it doesn't go too far, then you're okay.
I think that's a fair assumption. Political correctness is an odd topic for me because I'm not in the interest of offending people. You know, if a word offends you or if something like that, it's not something I like to do. But I also think that it is your right to say it. And it is your right as another person to get offended, but that doesn't make you right.
Right.
You know, words are words. They're only given power by how you use them or how you accept them or how you take them.
Yeah.
It's you know, the implication... to me, it just seems like politically correctness, it has... I like the idea of it, but I don't like the application. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want anybody to get offended by the fact that I would use the word retard. But I would still use the word retard.
Sort of
And I say
principle.
that as someone with a cousin who has Down syndrome. And I of course I don't use the word around her. I don't use the word around her family. But in other aspects of my life, of course I use the word.
Yeah.
I mean...
Why is it not the same for things like the N-word? Because that is also part of political correctness. It was not socially acceptable to just walk around and use the N-word anymore.
In my opinion, it's because we didn't load mentally retarded... Or, I'm sorry, mentally disabled.
They don't have the same history.
They don't have the same history.
Yeah.
Okay, so they weren't brought here against their will. And
Yeah.
But, I don't know, when you compare the two... It is a hard comparison to make, but... I
think words... Certain words carry weight. You know, certain words carry a weight behind them. I don't think that... And this is... I'm just going to use the words because we're talking about political correctness. I don't think retard has the same impact that the word would have.
No, it doesn't.
And of course it shouldn't, in my opinion.
No.
I don't believe that. Yes, it's a bad word to say, but the other one's much worse. And
sort of the ideal scenario, though, is not that we should place retard in that same category with as the sort of untouchable word. The ideal, like, where as a society we want to get is where the word is no longer has that baggage attached to it, and it becomes a little bit more freely said in a comedic tone, and it doesn't carry that same weight as something, you know, incredibly racially charged and malicious. And I'm not saying we necessarily will ever get there, but that the idea shouldn't be we should be putting more words in that category. That word is in a special place. We shouldn't add words to that category.
I think there are certain words that I would, because I don't think. And again, like I said, political correctness. I don't think the term faggot should be in the same boat as the term.
The why? What do you mean by that?
So we agree.
Yes, and here's why. Of course, that word has been used as a slur for homosexual people. And yes, throughout history, homosexual people have been the target of abuse. But I don't think that the word has as deep a history as does.
But who are you to say?
And that's
sort of the
problem. And that's a fair point. And that's a fair point. I've also been trying. I've been trying as I've gotten older to use that word less, because I know, like, at the same time, like I said, I don't want to offend anybody, and whether or not I have a problem hearing the word, I might have more of a problem saying the word. If that makes sense. Excuse me.
So, here's where I kind of fall. I agree with you. I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to say words that
you don't want to be purposely hurtful.
No, and especially not for its own sake. If I feel like it adds something to a joke, or if it's relevant to a conversation, I will say it because I think it outweighs that worry, that concern I have for offending someone. But sort of, the more fundamentally speaking, the fact that these words carry so much sensitivity to them, I think that's the bigger issue. That's the problem, and I think this oversensitivity. So where does it end? If one person decides that certain words, like I'm trying to think of something, she-male, for example. Transgender rights are sort of in vogue. So say that becomes another word that people.
Tranny.
Yeah,
tranny.
Tranny would be.
Tranny
would,
I guess, would be better. Okay.
Yeah, the tranny would be the word that you're not supposed to say. That would be the equivalent of their N word. But the problem I'm having is that for us to say, don't add words to the N word category because they're not as that level of serious. But we are sitting in this room as three white males who have not been hurt by any of the words that we've been discussing here today.
That's absolutely true.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and so it is easy for us to categorize stuff as where you got the world has put weight on these words. So the only way to take that off is for people to just not be offended by it.
But that's where sort of my point comes in, where you can't have a certain set of rules of etiquette that apply to everybody because everybody's different. Words affect people differently. So if you're going to start lumping that word, if we're going to start, like Dave said, putting more words into that category, where does it end? It's just as an example, the other day we were having a conversation and a female friend of ours noted that there was an article that was shared that found the word girl offensive. And girl being used instead of woman. Now, see, I come from a place where I say boy still. I say boy or girl. I say man or woman. I say lady or dude. Those are all words for the same thing to me. Girl, to me, does not mean a little girl, like a younger woman. It just means a person of the female sex.
But the point being proven on the video that Matt is referencing is that in our common vernacular, we're much more quick to call women, adult young women, girls, where we don't do the same for males.
Which is true.
Yeah. That's
common vernacular. I know you don't do that, and even if it's not necessarily meant to infantilize women, it's still contextually it sort of
completely
does. It's probably not done for that reason. It's probably just a quirk of speech that guy and girl kind of works.
It's more
a quirk. I would imagine.
It is a quirk of speech.
That's a guess,
because it is a quirk of speech. And I said, the person you see every day, he's still your boyfriend.
True. Yeah.
That's a common. It's
not
common
for.
He's not your man friend.
Right.
You're not his woman friend.
Yeah. That's true.
It's just a quirk of speech. It's how it's used. I think that the PC society has started finding problems where there aren't any.
Yeah.
And then using backwards logic to say, no, this is a problem, and here's why. You don't even realize you're doing it, and then this... No, I don't think that's the case. I just think that you're taking certain vernacular, certain ways that everybody has of speaking, and twisting them to your... Because they don't apply the same logic in their own world. They don't. I've seen it happen. You know, I guarantee the person who wrote that article when she was dating someone didn't call him their man friend.
Being so pedantic with speech, it's sort of
I can't imagine
masturbatory.
it. It's exhausting.
It's not done for a greater good, where we eventually live in a utopian world where speech, no one ever says that's anything offensive. We have our untouchable words that no one says. Those are never said, and therefore race relations are fine. There are no prejudice towards homosexuality or transgender people. It's like it's not the way to get to those places where race relations greatly improve. That it's not going to be done because we start changing our speech. I don't think taking the word nigger out of anyone's mouth. I mean, at this point, that's sort of where we're at, right? That's sort of a good case study of a word that has been successfully removed from common vernacular. That's not really used.
It's been removed from acceptance as common
right.
vernacular.
So if you're using that word now,
Socially
I mean, we're using it here more to make a point, but say we were using it to describe an African American, that would be certainly racist, and that would be meant hatefully. So that word has been removed. So that's sort of the end goal for this politics of speech movement, right? That's where they want all these words to end up. How has that improved race relations? Race relations are arguably at their worst they've been in probably what? Since Jim Crow? Since Jim Crow ended, probably? I mean, it's just not the right way. And I don't think necessarily it's wrong to consider this an important issue that deserves attention. I think politics of speech has a place. Speech matters. I firmly believe that. And so I cannot believe that without believing that this movement to make speech more, careful and more sensitive is not... It's not misguided. I think there is a place for it. But I think the fact that you see movements like with neo-feminism, right? Where neo-feminism, it's almost entirely built on the politics of speech. It's not really, the wage gap is not really attacked as like the main issue. It really falls more on this side of it. And for this to become such a large issue in the world that we're in, where climate change threatens our world in the next 30 years for a total destabilization of the entire world, and corporate corruption and governmental corruption, and it's so unimportant as it compares to other issues. It boggles my mind that groups become so radicalized by this idea.
We have a president of the United States who's under investigation for treason, dropping bombs on foreign countries, and we're arguing about whether we should say the word girl.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and look, of course, that doesn't mean no one can argue about anything that's not as important as, bombing the world. Of course, there are different levels, but there is something to be said for that point, that this movement that is built on this idea uses this as their main issue. This is when Black Lives Matter, which sort of became a part of this sort of movement of politics of speech. So it was sort of the original intent was, let's try to start reforming a lot of these local police departments to improve community policing and get back to that kind of old school way of policing, that communities knew their police officers, and so that was their end goal. So they kind of transformed, at least parts of it did, into this more focused on what we're talking about, this PC culture. And you saw the perfect example of that is they're jumping on the stage of Bernie Sanders, interrupting his speech to protest him. He's their hero. Like, this is their champion in the political sphere. It doesn't get any better than than Bernie Sanders or John Lewis, perhaps. But you know what I mean. He's as good.
Didn't he march?
Yeah, he marched with Martin Luther King. He was one of the only mainstream politicians to campaign for Jesse Jackson in the 80s, which was as radical a thing as you could do in mainstream politics in the 80s, because there wasn't nearly as much acceptance for African-American politicians. Yeah. Especially one like Jesse Jackson, who was this very polarizing figure. And so my point is, instead of focusing on the substantive movement that could really enact change within police departments, demilitarized police departments, and Bernie Sanders would have been their guy, and they should have been out campaigning for him, raising money for him. Instead, what they're doing is satisfying a
base need to point the finger.
It's an emotional kind of outburst. It's almost like a temper tantrum. Like, you're not one of us because you don't get up there and say such and such, and that means we're against you. And it's found in any playbook of a radical group. So the movement is just so unpalatable. And so,
Black Lives Matter?
Black Lives Matter, but more specifically PC culture and how that infects all these other progressive movements.
Before we were talking about the bombs that our dear president has recently dropped. And one of the other reasons why I wanted to talk about this today was because, and we were recording this on the 14th, so the mother of all bombs was dropped probably about 24 hours ago, I guess.
Yeah, right now.
And today at work, I was having a conversation with a coworker, and he said, I was reading about what took place, about the bombs being dropped, and one of the first comments under the article I read was that someone was offended at the usage of the term mother of all bombs, because motherhood should not be ever used in reference to something that takes life. Motherhood is about giving life and raising life.
Tell that to Casey Anthony.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, 2011, Matt.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Jesus. Nailed it. No, but it fucking drove me up a wall.
Yeah.
It drove me up a wall because I would like to think of myself as a person who does outwardly try to not be offensive.
More so than we do.
Yeah, that's true.
You make a real effort.
But and what was also an eye-opening experience is when I went to Boston recently on a trip, and we hang out with Andrew, or at Sir Gislo for the RLF fans out there, and Boston is an extremely democratic, liberal-minded city that has no minorities, and that's the way but they're extremely liberal. And actually, Andrew introduced me as his Democrat friend who still says stuff like fag. And
really? You were that guy there?
I'm that guy there.
So in that circle, you're still... in this circle, you're the...
right-wing piece of shit who will still vote Democrat.
Right.
Because I haven't fully dove into drinking soy milk and...
Not vegan.
Yes, I'm not a full-blown... liberal snowflake.
Libtard.
Yeah, libtard, exactly. But I described myself more, what I thought was more appropriately as a Democrat who has not forgotten the lesson of sticks and stones will not break my bones.
Absolutely. It doesn't get more simple than that.
But I also say that fully understanding and knowing that I get to say that as technically a white male.
Sure.
And I say technically as a white male because recently in my life, I have had people tell me that my nationality, which I am partially Puerto Rican and partially Italian, that makes me not white.
Who said that?
A couple of people.
Really?
I remember I was having a conversation, and it was at my old job before the current one, and it was a guy from one of the other departments. He had transferred up to the store from Texas. He was born here, went to Texas for college, stayed, had a family, fucked it all up, moved up here. And we were just talking, shooting the shit. I don't know how it came up, but I described myself as a white guy. And he's like, "You're not white." And I said, "Oh, I never had been challenged on that before."
Yeah.
Because I own mirrors.
Yeah. Of course you're white.
And
it's crazy.
And
I'm looking at you both. You have the same skin tone.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And he was like, "No, you're Italian, Puerto Rican."
Italian?
Yeah.
First of all, Italian is like, there's no question. That's white.
some super... No, but what you don't realize is that that's some super old school waspy shit.
Sure.
To discredit.
Yeah.
Like Italians or like the Irish and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like,
Irish weren't white. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
You had to be from like the north of England.
Yeah,
that was the only white people.
It was the only type of real white, and that shit still exists. I remember going to visit my sister in Ohio, and she did not live in Columbus. She was living in a part that was about 30 minutes outside of Dayton. We're talking like pretty rural, not fucking. I don't know, insert whatever Midwestern joke you want to hear. But I remember walking into the local gas station that was there, which was like a gas station, but they also had like, it was like a local like eatery type of spot. It was pretty good. The food was delicious. But I walk in, I'm wearing my Misfits t-shirt, which is a black shirt with a giant skull face on the front of it. I've got like cargo shorts, my flat-brimmed hat on backwards. I'm just dressed what's normal for me, and that is so not what was normal for them. I've never had so many people just staring at me before based off the way I looked. And I realized, like, oh man, I look totally different than these people.
It's true.
You know, and I got a couple, you're not from around here, are you? I'm like, no, I'm not.
Do you take pride in that? Like, on some level, like, you're not from some
by default, there is alright, so what I'm about to say, you guys are all going to agree because you're from here. There's that, I'm a New Yorker in me. That tells me in the back of my, which is an untrue fact.
Of course.
That I can handle anything.
Right.
Because at the back of my mind, I'm a New Yorker.
Right. Even though we grew up in literally a town that there are no black people. That was not allowed.
The whitest town on planet Earth.
Right.
Nope. If I can make it there, Nikolai.
Yeah.
I'll make it anywhere.
Bill O'Reilly came out of this town. But you know it's tough.
But, I mean, we do live on Long Island where we live in a legally segregated area. Yeah. Because that's what it is.
I mean, you know, it started off that way. And if you want any better evidence that you know, it takes a very long time for a race to recover from discrimination, and there are still no black people in this town. There's like 4 families.
There's still more than 90% white people in the town to this day. That does not. It's not a coincidence. No, it didn't happen by accident. Like, like I said, Long Island itself, and specifically Nassau and Suffolk counties, we live in an area where it's legally segregated. You look at our high school populations, we have high school populations where if the population of African Americans, which using that term in itself, I feel is a failing of political correctness.
I totally agree. I don't use that term really.
I use black people.
Me too.
Because I feel that that's more accurate.
It is. What about Jamaicans? What about Haitians?
I've personally had been friends with Haitians.
Right.
And black and Jamaicans who don't identify as African Americans. It's like, I don't know anybody in Africa.
He's like, about like 20 generations.
He's like, exactly. I knew a guy at my previous job. His name was Fennell. When he lived in Haiti, because he moved here when he was 24 years old. He was a medical student in Haiti. Then he came here, and he's been trying to become a doctor for like 8 years. You know, he's been working, trying to get himself through school and stuff like that. But he was like, my family has been in Haiti for 250 years. He said he could trace his family back to, or some crazy amount of time. He's like, I'm not African American. Right. He's like, if anything, and he named the town, which I don't remember the name of. He's like, that's who I am. And I was like, that completely makes sense to me.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's totally a failing of PC culture.
I forget what point I was making, though. Is that... because I went off on a tangent there. Shit. I don't know.
Kind of got off topic anyway.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Well, we were talking about PC in general.
Okay. Anyway, to your point earlier, and I think that the PC culture kind of ends up falling in this category. So you were talking about, you know, Andrew, and he introduced you to his friends, and so you get the...
how I'm not white and stuff like that.
Right, how you're... No, Andrew. So he was
No.
like, "You're the one that still says fag." And
Yeah.
So the way I picture this group of people, although I don't know them, so it could be totally different. But
They're improv people.
okay, well, no, I'm kidding. No, like the vegan, the politically correct, the identity politics is the most important issue of the day. Mm-hmm. This is sort of the idea of this group of people that I imagine, right? And it's maybe this is not them, but that's a real segment of the liberal section of America, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of more. It's not about progressive social programs. It's not about common sense regulation of corporations or removing money from politics or healthcare reform or global warming stuff. It's about the culture of liberalism, mm-hmm. that riding your bike everywhere and having long hair, that sort of thing. And I think it misses the point. And I think that these people are the reason Hillary Clinton won the primary. Is because these people didn't care about these issues where Bernie Sanders was demonstrably better and would have made more of an impact to improve a lot of our policies in the United States. It was more about the identity stuff. Oh, she's a woman. She's recognizable. My friends are going to vote for her. I'm going to, I'll vote for her. And you know what? That goes for the Bernie Sanders crowd, too.
It seems very tone deaf. That she got as much support as she did.
I think anyone that thinks of themselves as progressives, it's hard for me to understand how they could go for Hillary. And I don't mean to bash Hillary. All I mean to say is Hillary is absolutely on almost the total right end of Democrats. Bernie Sanders is more in line politically with policies that most of the United States agrees with. It's hard for me to understand how that guy doesn't get elected when his policies, the ones he has, are 65-75% public approval among the total population, not just Democrats. And I think it falls into these wedge issues. And I think the one in our backyard, so Republicans have theirs. They have guns, they have abortion. Democrats, it's politics of speech, and it corrupts every other issue.
And it's I think every time a flag gets raised for a non-issue, and it's, again, we're saying non-issue is people who aren't dealing with these issues.
Yeah.
But every time a flag gets raised for the mother of all bombs, and the problem being the fact that it's called the mother of all bombs, not what the bomb did itself.
Right. Or what that means.
What that means, the repercussions of that, but the issue is the fact that it was nicknamed the mother of all bombs. Like, whenever those failings occur, it just...
it just keeps us down that wrong path.
Yeah.
Honestly, it sort of feels like it's just two different methods of control for the population. Where if you look at the Republican Party, it's abortion, Muslims, wall, refugees, God, get scared. And then that gets everybody up into a tizzy. And then the Democrats are just like, but make sure everybody, it's just... we can't use anything that hurts anybody's feelings. Everybody has to feel safe and secure at all times. Right. And everybody's just talking over themselves and getting all up in arms at each other that nobody realizes, oh, wait, everything's still shit and nothing's changing.
Right.
And all we're doing is bantering about who we should kick out or what we should say.
The more safe spaces we create for people, the less able Americans will be to handle tough issues. It weakens people. So I have a question for you guys, and I got into a fight with another friend of mine who is also very liberal. So, there's this big controversy now on college campuses in general, and specifically about this issue. I mean, this is that's sort of the epicenter of where you see the breakdown of this movement. So I forget his name, Milo Yiannopoulos.
I know.
The guy from Breitbart. He's this.
Yes.
Gay alt-right guy.
Yeah, and he
really racist.
Yeah, he's really very racist. But he was also recently condemned because audio of him from being on a podcast justifying child molestation, stating that he was molested as a child, and that's what opened up his mind to the fact that he was gay, that he was a gay man. And that's why it was okay. What?
Silver lining.
Yeah. No, but that's why he was saying that it's justified for...
All right, so this guy is a total idiot.
Yes.
I mean, just what a retard. So he...
Nice.
The yucks.
Bring it together.
The yucks.
Bring it all together. So he was banned from, I think it was UC Berkeley. He was going to speak. He had a speaking date.
Yes, and
they campaigned against him. If you see the videos, you can see the students in the room where he's about to speak. They're upstairs. They're like screaming. They're like almost getting violent. It's I don't know. So that's my question to you guys. Do you think that's appropriate to?
God, no.
It rings false. It rings. As censorship and the fact that these students won't challenge this guy intellectually, they have to shut down the voice. But there is the other side of it. Why give a guy who's a racist idiot a platform?
Because he's allowed to have a platform. That's the thing. If you standing by this country and what it means, the freedom of speech, it's right there. People have a right to say what they have to say, and you have a right to get angry and offended about it. You don't have a right to deny him his right to speak, because then it's only your voice being heard. And that's the issue here. Only one side's voice is being heard. Everyone else is getting drowned out because, you know what? I don't like racists. I don't like racism. I don't like the fact that it is still common for people to use, you know, in a derogatory fashion at people, or, you know, Taliban for a Muslim person or something, or anything like that. I don't like that. But what I'm saying is, it's not illegal.
Yeah.
It's not. If you go by the laws of our country, they're allowed to be racist.
And the spirit of our country.
In the spirit of our country. Which is
this free marketplace of ideas. Then
right.
The best ideas will be... The worst ideas will be weeded out by just collective intellectualism.
Right.
So if these students can't... They can't even have an argument with this guy because they don't feel secure enough intellectually to know how to argue. Which is sort of... I agree with you in my point. But I'm guessing you're a little bit more on the side of... Don't let him speak. I mean, he's just some Klansman. He's like a modern-day Klansman. Why give him...
I mean...
And it's a private school.
Is it a point of pride that the KKK is a political party that exists in this country? Or that there's a Nazi political party? No. It's not a point of pride, but it is, I think...
I guess it's almost a point of pride.
In a way, I do think that it holds a level of importance.
Yeah.
That all different types of minority groups are represented. And the minority group being, in this example, being people who are of the mindset that racist bullshit ideals and ideologies are accurate.
Yeah. It's a small sect of the populace.
But then you go into the point of the conversation of, well, if we know that those ideals are bullshit, that when I meet a Mexican man, I should just speak to him as a man. And if I speak to a Jamaican woman, I should speak to her as a woman and not as a Jamaican woman. Or whatever other connotations or racism thing I can pull into it. I should just speak to them as who they are.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, it's so conflicting. It's so conflicting because if you don't spread their bullshit, then people, your everyday person, aren't going to know that shit still exists.
And in their world, it's gone.
Yeah.
Racism is not an issue. If you go by England, which has been successful, probably even more successful when it comes to black-white relations. I mean, they've gotten rid of racism long before us, which I attribute more to...
They got rid of racism long before us? That's why the Brexit vote happened?
No, that's certainly racism. That's obviously...
Racism
I didn't mean to say racism was gone. Black and white relations, though, are way better there than they are here.
I think that is partially in due to the fact that you've got a significantly smaller population and you've got an inherent cultural difference. Like, the culture there in England is so much more different than it is, and that's geographically based as well. And
True.
They abolished slavery much sooner, so they had decades of abolished slavery before America had that, and they also did not have that Jim Crow era like America did too. So
right.
I understand the point you're about to make, but it's a difficult comparison.
Well, no, I agree with you. Blacks and whites there have lived more socioeconomically equal for
Yeah.
much longer time. So
There is-
that's why I would say.
geographically there is no north-south divide in the UK. Yes, there is, of course.
But it's not.
I know that there is a northern and a southern portion of it, but there isn't that I've got to travel 600 miles on foot to reach a place that doesn't think that I have a smaller brain than the white person who's standing next to me.
Yeah.
You know, in London, I don't know the actual geographic landmass of the UK, but I don't think that it's as large as the United States.
It's not even close.
Yes. I got to imagine that if I'm traveling 200-300 miles, I can get to a pretty vastly fucking different area.
Well, it's true. So there is definitely geographics that come into it, but they have hate speech laws that basically eliminate any. If you had a Nazi party there, you would be arrested if you tried to speak. So that's
really?
their.
I'm unfamiliar. I'm actually not familiar with their hate speech laws. This is new information for me.
Yeah, hate
I
speech
didn't know
laws
that
are.
Canada had the same.
Canada, to a lesser extent, but they certainly do. England's are worse than most. I say worse. Some would say better.
Now, what do you have an example of one of the laws? Like,
Well, this sort of plays into it. Their libel laws are much different. If, say, you want to sue somebody for, say someone makes a claim, and this is a true example, that the Holocaust didn't happen.
okay,
They say they're a Holocaust denier. And so then you have this. This is, again, this is something that really happened. Then there's this historian who calls this guy a liar, says he's lying, the Holocaust did happen, this is a piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. This guy's a piece of shit. I mean, that guy sued her for libel or slander. I think it was written, so that's libel.
yeah,
And he, to win the suit, saying that it wasn't libelous what she said, that the Holocaust really did happen, she had to prove that the Holocaust happened. In this country, he would have had to prove the Holocaust didn't happen. In their country, she had to prove the Holocaust did happen. It's sort of a different way. So it's sort of guilty until proven innocent type way of looking at it.
I guess
And that plays into their hate speech laws as well. It's sort of like their take on it. So, like, if a Nazi member came out and started saying black people are a lesser species, blah blah blah, that would fall into that category, and they would be arrested.
all you'd have to do is prove that black people aren't a lesser species.
Not even. They would just be arrested. That's sort of just blanket. You can't say black
We've
people.
already figured that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're just arrested. If you post stuff online, the same deal. You can be arrested. I mean, it's not really prosecuted like that, and except for extreme cases, but that is the way they handle it, and arguably it's been successful. I think it goes against the spirit of democracy and that kind of ideal marketplace of ideas, but
I think it goes against the spirit of democracy when offenses under Part 3, which is this act, carry a maximum sentence of 7 years imprisonment.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
God damn.
How many examples are there of people being sentenced to the full?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I don't think it's very common, and the people in England are proud of their laws, and they think they work, and they don't think they're.
I don't think you should have to have laws to have decency. But at the same time,
Look who we just elected.
I don't think decency includes weeding out language to the point where just nobody can be offended all the time at anything.
Absolutely, I agree.
I don't know. It's like I've said so many times now. It's such a conflicting. The other thing, the other aspect of it that I find fascinating is that when you do have a conversation with a black person about PC culture, so a lot of black people think it's all fucking bullshit.
Oh, of course.
I think it's all fucking nonsense.
I would probably imagine most do.
And do you know why it's they think it's nonsense? In my opinion,
Please, white Matt, tell me.
you have a sister, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever do something to your sister that made her cry or made her upset, but you didn't want to say sorry?
Probably.
And your parents made you say sorry? But sorry didn't mean shit to her.
Yeah.
We are getting made to say sorry by our moms.
It's true.
And so I guess
It's not genuine.
Yeah.
It's you have to do this or you're bad.
Yeah.
It's not a genuine like, oh man, I probably shouldn't say that word. It would be bad. I would be in trouble if I said that word. It's not it doesn't come from a genuine place.
See, this is where I'm going to have to disagree with you. And this is also where I disagree with you. But this is also where I disagree with the idea of PC culture having gone too far. where this is where I think PC culture is good. Is because what was your point again?
My point is that the change in tone when we speak now is not genuine.
False. It rings false. It's not a genuine.
People are still racist.
Even
they
if
just
you're
pretend
disingenuous with your approach or your with your follow through, the fact that we've reached a point where people are attempting to not be outwardly offensive, I think, is a win. I think that political correctness is not just not saying certain things. I think it is saying some things appropriately.
Just the act in itself is a sign that you care enough.
Karen, that I'm trying to speak to you. Yeah, I'm trying to speak to this person who might not be the way I am. So, for example, I remember at work once, there was a couple of us standing around the desk, and there was 2 guys who were Middle Eastern, 1 guy who was black. And the black guy called the 2 Middle Eastern guys Indian. I said, no, he's from Pakistan, and the other one's from Afghanistan. And he gave me a real, what the fuck does it matter? What's the difference? Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, it does matter. Because if I called you a Nigerian prince as a joke, you'd be offended because I know you're Haitian. Mm-hmm. And this happened to be my Haitian friend from the other story earlier. And that would be inaccurate. So for you to just call them Indian, that's insensitive. Mm-hmm. That's not... So, I don't know. I think
that's true.
Yeah.
But I think to Matt's point, that is the person doing it? Are they making the attempt because they see themselves, I don't want to offend this person because they're another human being and I want to be sensitive to their wishes, and so I will make an attempt, though I find it to be trite and unimportant, I will still do it. Or are they doing it because otherwise they will be culturally ostracized?
I think it's a mix, but I think it's hard to tell the difference between the two.
True.
And I think the movement was based out of a place of... I think it was based out of a place of, this is a change that should happen. But I think that it has gained movement by people who are like, yeah, you're right. I'm not... Yeah, okay, come on. Nobody say it anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody say it anymore. Jim, stop saying...
Yeah.
So that's virtuous. But I guess the elephant in the room, though, is that the logical conclusion of this whole movement is arguably the biggest contributor to the fact that we elected a president that is the antithesis of the idea of sensitivity.
Dave, get off Trump's dick.
It's probably not clear, but I'm not a fan.
I think that he's going to go down as the best golfing president of all time.
The best ever.
He has such a nice place there in Mar-a-Lago. The other thing, and I don't know if we want to get into this part of it too, because this is arguably another huge part of this whole conversation, which is arguably more sensitive, is that how do you come down on the sensitivity you should show to Muslims versus the condemnation you should have for Muslim culture, which in most of the world, under most Muslim societies and governments, they are wildly regressive and totally at odds with our Western values.
Yeah.
And believe a lot of things that are at odds totally with the PC movement.
I just think it's a reversal of what we have here. I think that the larger sect of society there is that extreme sort of radicalist, movement, that way of old, death to Western society type of civilization. And I think that just here it's switched, where I think the majority of people generally, and see, this is, okay, and it's going to come back to, Donald Trump won the election. No, yes, but I also think that was because people didn't want to vote for Hillary Clinton. But anyway, what I'm saying is, I think the majority of people in our country are moving towards that more progressive side, that we should be moving forward thing, and that's for the best. And yes, it's still bad right now. It's by no means good, but I think it's getting better. I think race relations are starting to get better. I think that now we're at a time where the parts of race relations that have been so bad for so many, like police. I think there's such a high spotlight on police and police brutality that you're going to see those incidents go way down, either through retraining or through the use of body cameras, which are going to be on every New York cop now for free. If you guys didn't hear about that.
Was that a while ago? Or?
No, it just happened.
Oh, okay.
Taser rebranded itself and is now, instead of making stun guns, they're making like a body armor. And they're offering body armor and cameras to New York City Police Department for a year.
Oh, that's cool.
Free.
That's great.
Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully that works out, and that's great. And I would love to see race relations continue to improve, but at the same time, I don't want to lose that part of our culture where we do have the freedom, even if it's in, jest, in comedy, and in whatever form, where you can still be you, even if it's a shitty you, even if it's terrible you. I mean, you should still be able to be you, as long as it doesn't impede with someone else's way of living life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Purely being offensive is not enough of a...
If you're running or if you're being offensive to make a point or for a reason, I don't know if that's the same as you're just being offensive because you're an asshole. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
I was getting at that progressives in this country are very quick to call out Islamophobia and come to the defense of Muslims. And arguably a lot of Muslims are totally the opposite of all the values they espouse, these progressives. So being critical of, for example, Saudi Arabia, saying, okay, so people in Saudi Arabia have poor governments, they are not a well-functioning society, they are regressive, that might be deemed by this PC movement as Islamophobic, which is strange to me because you would think that these progressives in this realm would be more on the side of the Muslims that are standing against the regressive ancient.
I think that in itself would be disingenuous if you were to say, "Oh, that's Islamophobic." You can't call them out for having that regressive part of their society when your movement is based around calling out the regressive part of our society.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's hypocritical.
You can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway,
I don't know.
I mean, that's sort of a big breakdown within this argument, is that it's very sensitive to Muslims in this country from discrimination, which is legitimate, especially now. But there is a real virus or sickness within the Muslim world that is, this ancient religion that still causes, Sharia law to be practiced in like 85% of countries. That's a made-up statistic.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's exactly right.
I have a hard time.
I think it is.
I have a hard time with you using the word sickness. Because the reason why I have a hard time with that is because we do live in a world where we've got the Bible Belt, and a lot of those people have a lot of
sickness too.
They have
just not on the same level.
Yeah. Or it's just in a different shade.
It is, and fundamentalism is the issue.
A lot of the fundamental values of true hardcore Bible-thumping Christians
are very similar.
Very true. People who are very conservative and stout Muslims.
But they don't stone women. They don't stone women for being raped.
They don't have.
It's just not on that level.
They don't have the same extreme level. I do get
and
that.
I think,
but I also think that's partially because we've been living for generations now in a society that does
totally
not have as much violence.
If those fundamentalists lived, in their world, they would be just like them. I mean, people are not different. The same, like, I always use this example, but like the people living in Nazi Germany were not unique in the world, that they ended up becoming Nazis and working for Hitler. That could happen anywhere under the right circumstances. So these fundamentalists in the Islamic world are no different than the fundamentalists in our world. It's just a matter of circumstance. But that fundamentalism is the sickness, and that's the sickness I refer to, and I think it's bad anywhere.
Side note, since you brought him up, has anybody watched Hunting for Hitler?
No, I haven't watched the show.
What is that?
It's pretty crazy.
Oh, is that hunting for if he went to South America and
Brazil?
Yeah, Brazil. Right.
Did he go?
Seems like it.
Do we care?
Yeah.
And he would have died by now anyway,
I don't want to
right?
fucking... Oh, I mean, he'd be like 100 by now.
Over.
And he had Parkinson's anyway. He was dying.
I'm like 10,000% over anything that the History Channel has to say about Hitler at this point.
It's a lot.
They have said so that I would be really, really impressed if we could find another figure in history whose life has been more chronicled, more detailed than Hitler's at this point, especially by the History Channel. Yeah. I understand that the name sells, but Jesus fucking Christ, like, there are so many other events. Let's dive deeper into, like...
Yeah. I mean, has there ever been another, like, final boss of that stature?
Genghis Khan.
Stalin?
Donald Trump.
Stalin, I would go Genghis Khan.
The fact that he killed way more people?
But by starvation. Not by, I want to kill those people. It was like he was making poor decisions that led to famine, and Mao did the same thing. Hitler was a little bit more unique. But Genghis Khan, I mean, literally brought the temperature of the planet down by all the people he killed.
Did he really?
Yeah. Well, the global temperature was reduced because the population was so drastically reduced. And the interesting thing about Genghis Khan was that he ended up, after doing all that horrible conquering and brutal murder, was a good ruler and had created a well-functioning society.
Really?
Yeah. That ended up being a real catalyst for progressive change throughout the world, really. At least Eurasia.
Like, what progressive change did he bring about?
Like, education was a huge pillar of Genghis Khan's empire. You could walk literally from, like, I forget where, Italy.
Oh, because he believed in roads?
He believed in roads and had a well-functioning police force that ensured no crime and security, and a lot of his practices were adopted by later European rulers that went on to... And then a lot of the Middle East was influenced and became a real beacon for learning.
Was he not the dictator, or I guess the conqueror would be the correct term?
The conqueror, Brock Lesnar.
I don't know if it's him or Alexander the Great, who was in, I guess, in rule over the highest amount of the world, or percentage of the world, or the inhabited world at the time, or something like that.
I think it was Alexander the Great.
I think both were in their time. I mean, they both...
I mean, of course, in their specific time, of course.
You mean ever?
But ever. I feel like one or the other.
I know I've heard that about Alexander the Great. I would imagine, though, it's got to be Genghis Khan, because he got to, like, halfway through Germany from Mongolia.
But also
through a lot of Iran.
But with Genghis Khan, I know that his grandson had a much larger empire than he did. What?
It was Genghis Khan.
By, like...
Without a doubt, the greatest conqueror in history, who conquered more than double the area of land that Alexander the Great did.
Wow.
Alexander the Great went Macedonia to, like, China, I'm thinking, right? Through, like, Middle East to, like...
Area conquered.
He didn't even get into China, I would imagine.
Area conquered 12.5 million square kilometers.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
That is insane.
He was a great conqueror.
But it all fell apart once the people adopted their trademark catchphrase.
What was that?
Oh, it was Nishar Mata.
What does that translate to?
Fuck our president.